62 Navarre Avenue, 10 acres located at 5259 Pickle Road, and 4.146 acres located at 5312 Navarre Avenue. We also have a renewal application for agricultural district for Jerry A. and Christine M. Toth for 5 acres located at 4550 Pickle Road and 5 acres located at 4530 Pickle Road. Also have another renewal application for an agricultural district for Janet M. Morrison, trustee, for 20.136 acres located at 0 Navarre Avenue, 12.443 acres located at 4630 Navarre Avenue, 7.565 acres located at 4718 Navarre Avenue. So I have a renewal application for agricultural district for Orwood LLC, an Ohio limited liability company, for 46.6 acres located at 6100 Brown Road. And that's it. So is there anybody here to speak for any of these renewal applications? Is there anyone here to speak against any of these renewal applications? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing at 7:17. And I will move to item 2022, and ask Ms. Rawson to read it into the record.
Approving inclusion of certain land situated in the city of Oregon, Ohio, owned by Abdallah and Rania Tawil into an agricultural district for a 5-year period and declaring an emergency.
Council.
Mr. President,
Mr. Davish.
I move for passage of ordinance 20 of 2022 as emergency.
Thank you, Mr. Davish.
2023 it should be.
Pardon me?
Oh. Okay. 2023.
2023.
2023.
Yeah, 2023.
Yeah.
Yeah, it should be 20.
Second.
Second by Ms. Paulo. Ms. Rawson, would you take a roll call vote of council, please?
Yes. Mr. Davish?
Yes.
Ms. Paula?
Yes.
Mr. Drake?
Yes.
Mr. Reeves?
Yes.
Mr. Wallensack?
Yes.
Mr. Zale?
Yes, thank you, council. Ordinance 20 to 2023 passes with 6 yeas and 0 nays. Next is I will assign item 21-2023 as ordinance 21-2023 and ask Ms. Rawson to read it in the record.
Approving inclusion of a certain land situated in the city of Oregon, Ohio, owned by Oregon Board of Education, Oregon City Schools into an agricultural district for a 5-year period and declaring an emergency.
Council.
Mr. President,
Mr. Davish.
I move for passage of ordinance 21 of 2023 as emergency.
Thank you, Mr. Davish.
Second.
Second by Ms. Paulo. Thank you, Ms. Paulo. Ms. Rawson, will you take a roll call vote of council, please?
Mr. Davish?
Yes.
Mrs. Paula?
Yes.
Mr. Drake?
Yes.
Mr. Reeves?
Yes.
Mr. Wallensack?
Yes.
Mr. Zale?
Yes, thank you, council. Ordinance 21-2023 passes with 6 yeas and 0 nays. Next, I will assign item 22-2023 as ordinance 22-2023 and ask Ms. Rawson to read it in the record, please.
Approving inclusion of certain land situated in the city of Oregon, Ohio, owned by Gary A. Jolin et al. Into an agricultural district for a 5-year period and declaring an emergency.
Council.
Mr. President,
Mr. Davish.
I move for passage of ordinance 22 of 23 as an emergency.
Thank you, Mr. Davish.
Second.
Second by Ms. Pauloff. Thank you, Ms. Pauloff. Ms. Ross, will you take a roll call vote of the council, please?
Mr. Davish?
Yes.
Mrs. Paula?
Yes.
Mr. Drake?
Yes.
Mr. Reeves?
Yes.
Mr. Wallensack?
Yes.
Mr. Zale?
Yes, thank you, council. Ordinance 22-2023 passes with 6 yeas and 0 nays. Next, I will assign item 23-2023 as ordinance 23-2023 and ask Ms. Rawson to read it into the record.
Approving inclusion of certain land situated in the city of Oregon, Ohio, owned by Paul F. and Lana J. Romstad into an agricultural district for a 5-year period and declaring an emergency.
Council.
Mr. President,
Mr. Davish.
I move for passage of ordinance 23 of 2023 as an emergency.
Thank you, Mr. Davish.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Paula. Ms. Ross, would you take a roll call vote of council, please?
Mr. Davish?
Yes.
Mrs. Paula?
Yes.
Mr. Drake?
Yes.
Mr. Reeves?
Yes.
Mr. Wallensack?
Yes.
Mr. Zale?
Yes, thank you, council. Ordinance 23, 2022 passes with 6 yeas and 0 nays. Next, I will sign item 24, 2022 as ordinance 24, 2023. And ask Ms. Rawson to read in the record, please.
Approving inclusion of certain land situated in the city of Oregon, Ohio, owned by Jerry A. and Christine M. Toth into an agricultural district for a 5-year period and declaring an emergency.
Council.
Mr. President,
Mr. Davish.
I move for passage of ordinance 24 of 2023 as an emergency.
Thank you, Mr. Davish.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Pauloff. Ms. Rawson, would you take a roll call vote of council?
Mr. Davish?
Yes.
Mrs. Paula?
Yes.
Mr. Drake?
Yes.
Mr. Reeves?
Yes.
Mr. Wallensack?
Yes.
Mr. Zale?
Yes, thank you, council. Ordinance 24, 2023 passes with 6 yeas and 0 nays. Next, I will assign item 25, 2023 as ordinance 25, 2023, and ask Ms. Rawson to read it into the record, please.
Approving inclusion of certain land situated in the city of Oregon, Ohio, owned by Janet M. Morrison, trustee, into an agricultural district for a 5-year period and declaring an emergency.
Council.
Mr. President,
Mr. Davish.
I move for passage of ordinance 25 of 2023 as an emergency.
Thank you, Mr. Davish.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Pauloff. Ms. Ross, would you read it? Would you take a roll call vote of council, please?
Mr. Davish?
Yes.
Mrs. Paula?
Yes.
Mr. Drake?
Yes.
Mr. Reeves?
Yes.
Mr. Wallensack?
Yes.
Mr. Zale?
Yes, thank you, council. Ordinance 25, 2023 passes with 6 yeas and 0 nays. Next, I will assign item 26, 2023 as ordinance 26, 2023, and ask Ms. Rawson to read it in the record.
Approving inclusion of certain land situated in the city of Oregon, Ohio, owned by Orwood LLC and Ohio Limited Liability Company into an agricultural district for a 5-year period and declaring an emergency.
Council.
Mr. President,
Mr. Davish.
I move to pass for passage of ordinance 26 of 2023 as emergency.
Thank you, Mr. Davish.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Paula. Ms. Ross, will you take a roll call vote of the council, please?
Mr. Davish?
Yes.
Mrs. Paula?
Yes.
Mr. Drake?
Yes.
Mr. Reeves?
Yes.
Mr. Wallensack?
Yes.
Mr. Zale?
Yes, thank you, council. Ordinance 26, 2023 passes with 6 yeas and 0 nays. Council, next items for consideration. Council, we need to add items to this week's agenda since we did not have a committee of the whole last week. So we need to add items 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, and 35, and 36, and 37 of 2023 to this week's agenda.
Mr. President,
Mr. Reeves?
I move to add items 27 through 37 to this week's regular council meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Reeves.
Second.
Second by Mr. Davish. Thank you, Mr. Davish. Council, any objections? Hearing no objections, these items will be added to this week's agenda. The first item we will discuss is item 27, 2023, which is presented by Mayor Michael Safarian and the Commissioner of Recreation, Tim Borton. And I will defer to Mr. Borton on this particular item.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is just our annual usage of fertilization company. We sent out for 3 bids. 2 of them came back. Land Art was the one that we felt was most qualified, lowest best bid. And they've done that for us in the past several years before last year. So they rebid on it this year and they're coming back to do it. And this is basically fertilization for all these sports fields on the Parks and Recreation Complex, as well as any of the grass and green areas on the complex. And we do this every year on an annual basis.
Thank you, Mr. Borton. Council, any questions or comments? Hearing none, I will assign item 27, 2023 as ordinance 27, 2023, and ask Ms. Rawson to read it in the record.
Authorizing the mayor, finance director, and commissioner of recreation and parks to issue a purchase order to Land Art, Inc. for fertilization and weed control during 2023 season in the amount of $32,404.95 and declaring an emergency.
Council.
Mr. President,
Mr. Reeves.
I move for passage of ordinance 27, 2023 as an emergency measure.
Thank you, Mr. Reeves.
Second.
Second by Mr. Drake. Thank you, Mr. Drake. Ms. Rossin, would you take a roll call vote of council, please?
Mr. Reeves?
Yes.
Mr. Drake?
Yes.
Mr. Davish?
Yes.
Mrs. Paula?
Yes.
Mr. Wallensack?
Yes.
Mr. Zale?
Yes, thank you, council. Ordinance 27, 2023 passes with 6 yeas and 0 nays. Next items, item 28, 2023 is being presented by Mayor Michael Safarian and Public Service Director Paul Roman. And I will defer to the mayor here.
Thank you, Mr. President and council. You'll see items number 28 through items number 34 are items that are professional services that Mr. Roman predominantly uses these different contractors annually, and you usually see these things annually. We can answer, or he will answer any questions that you have, but I would say, once again, you would see these every year. These are professional services that we use as an at needed basis. And if there's any questions for any of them, you could ask, and if not, just assign them an ordinance number and run them.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Roman, you have anything to add right now?
Well, I was gonna say, item 35 as well, and probably the only thing new for these annual contracts, there are 3 consultants that the city council may not recognize. Item 33, Mackle CCT Labs, they are a construction testing and inspection. We've used them on the bike paths, and they've done a good job. They're nice to have, another alternative for testing services. CT Consultants, which is item 34, is formerly TTL, and they provide construction testing and inspection as well as engineering services similar to Bowser Mortar, which is item 30. And then West Erie Real Solutions is a right-of-way acquisition firm. I know this council has seen contracts with West Erie. We've used them now for almost 10 years. And it just seems throughout the year, there is a need of getting a small easement or just getting an appraisal. And we thought it'd be nice to have them as an annual contract. So on all of these items, as the mayor said, these are all on an as-needed basis only. And there are different things that pop up throughout the year. There are some years you may not use them at all. But otherwise, I'd like to just make note of those 3 new ones. And this includes items 28 through 35. And again, happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Roman. Council, are there any questions regarding any of these items that we are very familiar with for the most part every year? Any questions or comments regarding any for Mr. Roman? Hearing none, I will assign item 28, 2023 as ordinance 28, 2023, and ask Ms. Rawson to read it in the record.
Authorizing the mayor, finance director, and director of public service to enter into a contract with Demetria Jacobs Engineering, Inc., 1101 Research Drive, Toledo, Ohio, to provide professional engineering services and technical support for the Oregon Water and Wastewater Treatment Plant Supervisory Control and Data Acquisition, SCADA systems on an as-needed basis and declaring an emergency.
Council.
Mr. President,
Mr. Davish.
I move for passage of ordinance 28 of 2020 through 23 as an emergency.
Thank you, Mr. Davish.
Second.
Second by Ms. Paula. Thank you, Ms. Paula. Ms. Rawson, would you take a roll call vote of council, please?
Mr. Davish?
Yes.
Mrs. Paula?
Yes.
Mr. Drake?
Yes.
Mr. Reeves?
Yes.
Mr. Wallensack?
Yes.
Mr. Zale?
Yes, thank you, council. Ordinance 28, 2023 passes with 6 yeas and 0 nays. Next, I will assign item 29, 2023 as ordinance 29, 2023, and ask Ms. Rawson to read it into the record, please.
Authorizing the mayor, finance director, and director of public service to enter into a contract with Solomon Diving, Inc., 6450 Stadler Road, Monroe, Michigan, for diving inspection services on an as-needed basis and declaring an emergency.
Council.
Mr. President,
Mr. Davish.
I move for passage of ordinance 29 of 2023 as emergency.
Thank you, Mr. Davish.
Second.
Second by Ms. Pauloff. Thank you, Ms. Pauloff. Ms. Ross, would you take a roll call vote of council, please?
Mr. Davish?
Yes.
Mrs. Paula?
Yes.
Mr. Drake?
Yes.
Mr. Reeves?
Yes.
Mr. Wallensack?
Yes.
Mr. Zale?
Yes, thank you, council. Ordinance 29, 2023 passes with 6 yeas and 0 nays. Next, I will assign item 30, 2023 as ordinance 30, 2023, and ask Ms. Rawson to read the record.
Authorizing the mayor, finance director, and director of public service to enter into a contract with Bowser Morner, 1419 Miami Street, Toledo, Ohio, for materials and laboratory testing, engineering, and construction inspection services on an as-needed basis and declaring an emergency.
Council.
Mr. President,
Mr. Davish.
I move for passage of ordinance 30 of 2023 as emergency.
Thank you, Mr. Davish.
Second.
Second by Ms. Pauloff. Thank you, Ms. Pauloff. Ms. Ross, will you take a roll call vote of council, please?
Mr. Davish?
Yes.
Mrs. Paula?
Yes.
Mr. Drake?
Yes.
Mr. Reeves?
Yes.
Mr. Wallensack?
Yes.
Mr. Zale?
Yes, thank you, council. Ordinance 30, 2023 passes with 6 yeas and 0 nays. Next, I will assign item 31, 2023 as ordinance 31, 2023, and ask Ms. Rawson to read the record.
Authorizing the mayor, finance director, and director of public service to enter into a contract with DGL Consulting Engineers LLC, 3455 Briarfield Boulevard, Suite E, Maumee, Ohio, to provide professional engineering services for various traffic analysis on an as-needed basis and declaring an emergency.
Council.
Mr. President,
Mr. Davish.
I move for passage of ordinance 31 of 2023 as emergency.
Thank you, Mr. Davish.
Second.
Second by Ms. Pauloff. Thank you, Ms. Pauloff. Ms. Ross, will you take a roll call vote of council, please?
Mr. Davish?
Yes.
Mrs. Paula?
Yes.
Mr. Drake?
Yes.
Mr. Reeves?
Yes.
Mr. Wallensack?
Yes.
Mr. Zale?
Yes. Ordinance 31, 2023 passes with 6 yeas and 0 nays. Next, I will assign item 32, 2023 as ordinance 32, 2023, and ask Ms. Rawson to read the record.
Authorizing the mayor, finance director, and director of public service to enter into a contract with Quality Control Inspection, Inc., or QCI, Inc., 9500 Midwest Avenue, Garfield Heights, Ohio, to provide construction inspection services on an as-needed basis and declaring an emergency.
Council.
Mr. President,
Mr. Davish.
I move for passage of ordinance 32 of 2023 as an emergency.
Thank you, Mr. Davish.
Second.
Second by Ms. Pauloff. Thank you, Ms. Pauloff. Ms. Ross, will you take a roll call vote of council, please?
Mr. Davish?
Yes.
Mrs. Paula?
Yes.
Mr. Drake?
Yes.
Mr. Reeves?
Yes.
Mr. Wallensack?
Yes.
Mr. Zale?
Yes. Ordinance 32, 2023 passes with 6 yeas and 0 nays. Next, I will assign item 33, 2023 as ordinance 33, 2023, and ask Ms. Rawson to read the record.
Authorizing the mayor, finance director, and director of public service to enter into a contract with Mackle CCT Labs, 430 Bishop Road, Bowling Green, Ohio, for materials and laboratory testing, engineering, and construction inspection services on an as-needed basis and declaring an emergency.
Council.
Mr. President,
Mr. Davish.
I move for passage of ordinance 33 of 2023 as emergency.
Thank you, Mr. Davish.
Second.
Second by Ms. Pauloff. Thank you, Ms. Pauloff. Ms. Ross, will you take a roll call vote of the council, please?
Mr. Davish?
Yes.
Mrs. Paula?
Yes.
Mr. Drake?
Yes.
Mr. Reeves?
Yes.
Mr. Wallensack?
Yes.
Mr. Zale?
Yes, thank you, council. Ordinance 33, 2023 passes with 6 yeas and 0 nays. Next, I will assign item 34, 2023 as ordinance 34, 2023, and ask Ms. Rawson to read the record.
Authorizing the mayor, finance director, and director of public service to enter into a contract with CT Consultants, Inc., 1915 North 12th Street, Toledo, Ohio, for materials and laboratory testing, engineering, and construction inspection services on an as-needed basis and declaring an emergency.
Council.
Mr. President,
Mr. Davish.
I move for passage of ordinance 34 of 2023 as an emergency.
Thank you, Mr. Davish.
Second.
Second by Ms. Pauloff. Thank you, Ms. Pauloff. Ms. Rawson, would you take a roll call vote of the council?
Mr. Davish?
Yes.
Mrs. Paula?
Yes.
Mr. Drake?
Yes.
Mr. Reeves,
Yes.
Mr. Wallensack,
Yes.
Mr. Zale.
Yes, thank you, council. Ordinance 34, 2023 passes with 6 yeas and 0 nays. Next, I will assign item 35, 2023 as ordinance 35, 2023, and ask Ms. Rawson to read it into the record.
Authorizing the mayor, finance director, and director of public service to enter into a contract with West Erie Realty Solutions Limited, 323 Lafayette Street, Toledo, Ohio, to provide professional right-of-way appraisal and real estate acquisition services on an as-needed basis and declaring an emergency.
Council,
Mr. President,
Mr. Davish.
I move for passage of ordinance 35 of 2023 as an emergency.
Thank you, Mr. Davish.
Second.
Second by Ms. Pauloff. Thank you, Ms. Pauloff. Ms. Ross, would you take a roll call vote of the council, please?
Mr. Davish,
Yes.
Mrs. Paula,
Yes.
Mr. Drake,
Yes.
Mr. Reeves,
Yes.
Mr. Wallensack,
Yes.
Mr. Zale.
Yes, thank you, council. Ordinance 35, 2023 passes with 6 yeas and 0 nays. Next, item 36, 2023 is being presented by Mayor Michael J. Safarian. Actually, item 36 and 37, and I will defer to the mayor on that.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I think you guys are aware of the fact that JT Schmidt has been our IT director slash, this is part you might not know, slash residential plans examiner in the inspection department, and moving around creates some kind of oddity itself, but we have found that the operation that we have here in the city, multi-million-dollar operation, we need an IT director daily on some sort of something going wrong. I know he helps me a lot, but I can barely turn my cell phone on by myself. So it has been determined that by many of the departments that it would be good to have him available at a full-time basis. And we created this pay scale kind of based on, it kind of mimics Maumee's, a little lower than Perrysburg, but it's in the ballpark of other communities around here. And we feel comfortable with JT's talents, and he does a good job, and we'd like to retain him. And so any other questions, I believe one of us up here could probably answer that.
Council, any questions or comments?
Mr. President,
Mr. Wallensack.
I'm sorry, I was in a slight discussion here with Mr. Roman on the, JT, the position that he is in now, he's kind of doing a dual role,
A shared.
shared
sorta
kind of
thing.
quasi
Yeah.
two positions. And from what we are told, that he is a very good IT person, that this is a good move, that at the end of the meeting, we're going to adjust something else, and that is a full-time position that we need at the city. And from my conversations with you, Mr. Administrator, that we may be able to have to stretch that a little bit more if things continue the way they go. Personnel-wise, potentially. I'm sorry,
No,
I don't know if
that's-
that should have been brought up or
No,
not.
that's great. No, from my perspective, cybersecurity and liabilities that we have in the IT world right now globally are very sophisticated and very real. And we have critical infrastructure and a lot of multi-million, as Mayor said, multi-million-dollar operation that there are risks there that need this attention.
Yeah.
Very much so. Plus the increase in the amount of programs, computer equipment that we have in police vehicles and fire vehicles and finance, all the different programming, parks and recreation with the rec programming and online services that we provide. I mean, in my opinion, this is an essential move. It's the IT is an essential part of doing business.
And I'm in full support of it. I just wanted to kind of present that this position has evolved to require this. It requires us to kind of pull him away from one and devote all his time to this. That's what I'm trying to get at. This is
Yes.
this is needed.
Yeah, Yeah,
Thank you.
and in the future, that's also a future look as you, I think you alluded to that, this position and the work that he does evolves.
Yeah.
It evolves. And his position backed up by Perry Protech right now in a contract is a good combo. And one thing Melissa did point out too is that the Oregon Municipal Court was also added to the functions of his job duties so that that is in addition to what, currently what he does
Perfect.
now. So
Thank you.
Mr. President,
Thank you, Mr. Walenzak. Ms. Paula?
so he'll be the sole IT guy as the position that he holds within building and zoning. Is that gonna go into a position that's gonna be made available?
We're gonna
answer.
Mr.
The-
Major?
Thank you, Mr. President. Right now, he is devoting most of his time to IT because he has to. So what little time he actually does put into building inspection at the moment, he's doing some of the work, but a lot of it is just filling in for Lee. So the residential plans examiner function is being done by the inspectors right now as, kind of shorthand. But that is something that I think we need to look at globally in the future too, in the building inspection department, especially with the changes that are coming with Mr. Gilmore's retirement that he has planned. So it's a good time to announced. I'm sorry, yeah, announced. That's always room for improvement. Always looking at efficiencies and making sure that the job is covered, and that's something we'll take a look at too.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Major.
you.
Thank you, Ms. Paula. Council, any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I will assign item 36, 2023 as ordinance 36, 2023, and ask Ms. Rawson to read it into the record.
An ordinance amending the classification plan of the City of Oregon as approved by Ordinance 90-1986 and Ordinance 69-2019 by updating and amending the responsibilities of the position of Information Technology Manager and declaring an emergency.
Council? Council,
Mr. President.
Mr. Walenzak?
Thank you, Mr. President. I make a motion for passage of ordinance number 36 of 2023 as an emergency measure.
Thank you, Mr. Walenzak.
Second.
Second by Mr. Davish. Thank you, Mr. Davish. Ms. Ross, will you take a roll call vote of council, please?
Mr. Walenzak?
Yes.
Mr. Davish?
Yes.
Mr. Drake?
Yes.
Mrs. Paula?
Yes.
Mr. Reeves?
Yes.
Mr. Zale?
Yes. Ordinance 36, 2023 passes with 6 yeas and 0 nays. Next item is also being presented by Mayor Michael J. Safarian, item 37, 2023, and I will defer to the mayor.
Thank you, Mr. President and council. This ordinance would encompass several positions that are in the city. It would be the IT department, the law director / prosecutor, the rec coordinator, the executive assistant to the city administrator, and the assistant fire chief and police chief. I will start with the IT director we just spoke about, and it takes the pay range that it kind of mimics Maumee's and a little lower than Perrysburg, but it goes from our range 30 to range 42. The law director, and it's kind of difficult to compare cities to cities because Melissa, being our law director, prosecutor, and somewhat of the human resource officer, shared duty with the executive assistant to the city administrator. It is currently at range 43, going to range 50, which is the same range that Mr. Roman's service director's position is. And I thought that was the more appropriate position for pay ranges comparatively to the work output and the educational background that it takes to have that position. The rec coordinator, when we kind of restructure it, the rec department, when Mr. Borton was made Parks Commissioner. Hank Fox was made the Recs Coordinator. We were kind of developing, it was kind of a little bit of new chartered area of what would be done. We knew that we may have to adjust those in accordance to what was actually done in those positions. And that took range, it is currently 22 and taking it to range 26. As for the executive assistant for our city administrator, who is the position held by Sandy Garverick, it had been discussed for probably 4 or 5 years that Sandy Garverick acts more as a assistant city administrator than an executive assistant. And comparatively, it would be underpaid for the position or the details that she currently does, where she is currently at range 24, and we would be moving that to range 28. The assistant chiefs, when Clayton O'Brien was hired as fire chief, established a new pay scale, and it mimicked our police chief and fire chiefs were the same scale. So Brandon Beings was also raised to accommodate what we believed was the new fair and equitable amount for a police and fire chief, because we found that's what we had to pay to find or to get us a quality fire chief. So we thought the police chief's salary would match that. And we traditionally had a step below as assistant chiefs. So being that those went up, we accordingly raised the assistant chiefs to our range 41, which it does actually reflect an 8 3/4% increase. We can speak more to these numbers if people have questions. Something we talked about before our budget process, during our budget process, and many times after the budget process. And again, we are here to try to answer any concerns or questions you may have about it. But we believe we have to compete with the market to retain quality individuals as our departmental heads or key positions. And this may just be a start of other adjustments we have to make along the way. But I believe it's appropriate to start this now, today, and retain our key people.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council, any questions or comments regarding item 37, 2023?
Mr. President,
Mr. Wallenzeck.
thank you. Mayor, just moving forward, I would just ask that this is presented at a committee of the whole meeting prior to. I know you had expressed that you had a desire to do that. It just didn't, timing just didn't work out. But on something like this, I would just appreciate it come through a committee of the whole meeting.
And that was always the intention. We thought that was the case this time.
Yeah, but again, it didn't happen. I just hope that we move forward through committee of the whole meeting structure for pay raises moving forward.
Thank you, Mr. Wallenzeck. Council, any other questions or comments? Mr. Wallenzeck, is that are you requesting a motion to place this item on next week's committee of the whole agenda?
No, I was not. I mean, we already added it to this evening's agenda.
Correct.
So you would seek a motion
Okay.
for passage.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Wallenzeck. I will assign item 37, 2023 as ordinance 37, 2023, and ask Ms. Rawson to read in the record.
Revising the pay ranges for various professional, supervisory, and technical employees non-bargaining and declaring an emergency.
Council.
Mr. President,
One, they do.
Mr. Wallenzeck.
I didn't say anything.
Mr. President,
I was gonna make a motion to move passage.
Marvin said it.
Marvin did?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there a second on that?
Second.
No, I didn't
Second
say
by-
it yet, but I move for passage of ordinance 37 of 2023 as emergency.
Okay.
Mr. President, if
Mr.
we could back up, I just want to make a couple comments on this item.
Go ahead, Mr. Ray.
Okay. I'm all about people getting good raises and whatever. I know there's a lot of hard workers, not only at the technical and professional. I know next year, I believe the ASME contracts are up, probably the police and fire with the full-time, so I just hope, I don't have a problem with this, but I just hope the administration looks into it for other individuals that deserve it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Drake. Was that a second also, Mr. Drake?
I seconded.
You second it? Ms. Rosen, will you take a roll call vote of council, please?
Mr. Davish?
Yes.
Mr. Reeves?
Yes.
Mr. Drake?
Yes.
Mrs. Paula?
Yes.
Mr. Wallensack?
Yes.
Mr. Zale?
Yes, thank you, council. Ordinance 37, 2023 passes with 6 yeas, 0 nays. Council, that completes our items for the agenda this evening. We'll now move to the mayor's report.
Thank you, Mr. President. Council, I have before me a couple of appointments. And the first one, and as I said, I made little comments to Mr. Zale when he used to refer to Mr. Nick Roman as acting finance director. And
Don't take that away from me.
yeah, yeah, but he acted so well as finance director. I'm going to ask your concurrence in making him permanent finance director. So I will do that. Ask your concurrence in the appointment of Mr. Nicholas Roman of 3159 Teresa Drive, Oregon, Ohio, the position of finance director. The appointment will be, yes, as, or,
20.
my eyes are killing me. February
28.
February 28th, 2023. Mr. Roman will be placed at range 42 of the pay scale, which is $53.90 an hour, or annual salary of $112,107.04. Thank you, that helps. And this, like, once again, the appointment will be effective as of tomorrow, Tuesday, February 28th. And I would ask council's concurrence in the appointment of Mr. Nick Roman to finance director.
Mr. President.
Mr. Wallensack.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move to concur with the mayor's appointment of Nicholas Roman to the office of, or the position of finance director of the city of Oregon.
Thank you, Mr. Wallensack.
Second.
Second by Mr. Reeves. Thank you, Mr. Reeves. Council, are there any objections? Hearing no objections, Mayor, council does concur with the appointment of acting finance director, Nick Roman.
Thank you, council. And the next, the position we created is IT director and pay scale. I'm going to ask council's concurrence in the appointment of Mr. James T. Schmidt of 6853 Deer Ridge Road, apartment 57, Maumee, Ohio, to once again to the position of IT director. And it is pay range 42, which is $51.40 an hour, 106-906-28, and his startup date will be also tomorrow, Tuesday, February 28th, 2023. And then once again, ask for council's concurrence in the appointment of James T., or commonly known JT Schmidt, to IT director.
Council.
Mr. President.
Mr. Wallensack.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move to concur with the mayor's appointment of James T. Schmidt as the information technology director of the city of Oregon.
Thank you, Mr. Wallensack.
Second.
Second by Mr. Reeves. Thank you, Mr. Reeves. Council, are there any objections? Hearing none, Mayor, council does concur with your appointment of Mr. Schmidt.
Okay, I appreciate that and thank you very much. And next, and this is a thing we would call a correction in Brandon Began as Chief Brandon Began. When the pay range is changed, when Clayton O'Brien was named as chief and pay scales, Brandon was placed in step one. Our agreement is when someone changes even ranges, they stay on their actual current step. We didn't end up doing that, and he would now be eligible for step 5. And to correct something we kind of messed up on, then I would ask council's concurrence in accepting Brandon Began to go to step 5 of pay range 47, which is an hourly rate of $59.62 an hour, annual rate $124,001.02, and that would also be as effective Tuesday, tomorrow, February 28th of 2023. I would ask for concurrence to make that adjustment.
Mr. President.
Mr. Wallenstein?
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move to concur with the mayor's adjustment to the pay range and step for Chief Brandon Began to pay range 47, step 5.
Thank you, Mr. Wallenstein.
Second.
Second by Mr. Drake. Thank you, Mr. Drake. Council, are there any objections? Hearing none, Mayor, council does concur with your decision.
And next, this is something that's dear to my heart. Is it involves a gal that's sitting a couple seats down from us, who I had the pleasure of working right across the hall from for quite a while, and that is the retirement announcement of Tina Evans. And Tina has requested March 3rd, 2023 as her retirement date. And I would ask council's concurrence in accepting the desires of Tina Evans as clerk of council to retired clerk of council Tina Evans.
Mr. President,
Do we have to?
Mr. Reeves?
thank you. I would like to concur,
Mm-hmm.
but looking at the memo that I have, it wasn't signed.
I guess you're still with us then.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Is it legal?
Thank you, Mr. Reeves.
No, I move to concur with the retirement of Tina Evans as our clerk of council.
Thank you, Mr. Reeves.
Second.
Second by Mr. Davish. Council, are there any objections other than mine?
I second that
Yeah.
objection.
Ms. Ross has done an excellent job this evening. I have a lot of confidence in her, but we have enjoyed Ms. Evans for a long time, and you're well appreciated.
Joey.
So Mayor, we do concur with accepting this retirement letter.
And the next, I'm going to ask if council had any objections. We have this lengthy list of seasonal appointments to the rec department. We will post this on our website. As if I would ask council's concurrence in accepting this list of seasonal appointees, these 2 pages, without reading them all, and unless you want me to.
I make a motion that the mayor has to read them.
So we're not trying to keep any secrets on any of the things we do here, contrary to some people's beliefs. But I would ask council's concurrence in accepting these 2 pages of seasonal appointments to the rec department.
Mr. President.
Mr. Reeves?
Reeves, yes. I concur with the mayor's 2-page employees for the Parks and Recreation.
Thank you, Mr. Reeves.
Second.
Second by Mr. Davish. Council, are there any objections? Hearing none, Mayor, council does accept these pay ranges that will be posted on the internet.
Okay, and I do appreciate that. I'm a little disheartened that you didn't want me to go through all.
I
that.
did want you to. I did. I talked to
So,
them.
and with that, I would conclude my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Major?
Thank you, Mr. President. Tina, congratulations and thank you. No further report, Mr. President.
Ms. Pepora,
No report, Mr. President.
Mr. Roman,
I guess I'd also like to say thank you, Tina. And I know Melissa would too, so, definitely one of the easiest persons I've ever worked with.
Mr. Reeves.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to thank Tina for her hard work and dedication and all this, having to take all of our phone calls and listen to us all the time. And please enjoy your retirement.
Thank you,
And
Mr.
welcome to Cassie. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reeves. Mr. Drake.
No report, but I just want to
Thank-
thank Tina. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Drake. Mr. Wallensack.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, I'll piggyback on everybody else's comments, but I think I already did that about a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
But Tina, thank you. I do appreciate all the help that you provided to me for the last 13 years as a council member. You've been tremendous help to me, and thank you very much. I hosted a committee meeting for the Finance Committee today. During the budget process, the city administrator and mayor had some items that they had pulled from the budget, waiting to see if funds came in at a level that could warrant reconsidering items. After they were able to determine the amount of funds that came in December, they did present items to city council at the committee hearing. Some of those items are the radios for the police cars, a maintenance garage for the street maintenance, some engineering renovations, a support vehicle for the fire department, some stuff with the dog park, a utility vehicle for the recreation department, and then some work out at the police firing range. I'm sure this stuff will get brought forward in the quarterly adjustments to the appropriations, the first meeting of April, but the city council and the administration had good discussion on these items. Some items were not accepted, some items were moved forward, and then we discussed the pay ranges in detail at that meeting. So that's all I had. I just wanted to announce that we had that report and items were going to be brought forward in the quarterly appropriation adjustment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wallensack. Mr. Davish.
Tina, enjoy your retirement. You deserve it. We've been missing you, and I got no report.
Thank you, Mr. Davish. Ms. Paula.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to set a safety committee meeting on Monday, March 27th. And it's in regards to recreational vehicles on the streets of Oregon.
Thank you, Ms. Paula.
And also, I'd like to thank Tina. I don't know, you're like everybody's right hand. Cassie's got some very big shoes to fill. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Paula.
Hmm?
And
She did.
I have to set I'm here to set a public hearing for March 27th, 2023 at 7 p.m. This is an application for a zoning change for an A1 agricultural district to advanced manufacturing district on properties described as 4701 Corduroy Road, parcel number 44-10204, consisting of approximately 23 acres, and 4713 Corduroy Road, parcel number 44-10114, consisting of approximately 29 acres, and a zoning change from a mixed-use A1 agricultural district and CI commercial industrial district to advanced manufacturing district on a portion of property described as 700 North Wind Road, parcel number 44-09984, consisting of approximately 32 acres. This zoning change is being initiated by the city of Oregon. And for me to follow up, Tina, I congratulations. I know all of council appreciates you, but I think as council president, I have a little different take on the help you've given me every week, and it's just so appreciated, and it's gonna be missed. But like I said, Ms. Ross, I think you're gonna do a good job for us. Big shoes to fill, but thank you so much and enjoy your retirement, and I'm sure we'll still talk. Thank you. And that completes all of our comments, and we have one person signed in to speak, Ruth Price. If you want to come to the podium, state your name and address for the record.
Thank you, Mr. Safarian, Mr. Major, Council. You just spoke about the property on Corduroy and Wood Road, but unfortunately could not understand most of what you said, and I wondered why it wasn't printed out on the council minutes meeting on here, so we knew what it was.
Are you talking about the?
There isn't,
the
you
public
just
hearing?
talked
Are
about
you
it.
talking about the public hearing that I just announced?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, yeah. I just announced it. It will be on any other paperwork that we do, but I just set the public hearing for today or for the 27th of March.
Okay. Mrs. Ackerman isn't here tonight. She's out of town, so some things that we were gonna bring up, I'm just gonna wait till she gets back in town. And one other thing I'm gonna bring up, which I will continue to bring up until I can't come anymore, hopefully, which won't be for a long time, is I think it's disrespectful to the people out here that put themselves out to come to try to see what's going on in the city, and you don't wish for us to hear many of the things that you talk about. You're either talking to each other or you don't want to talk to the microphone. But I think it's very disrespectful. I don't know what your problem is. So I'm asking Mr. Mayor, Mr. Major, would you please, like I've asked many times, to address this situation?
I'm not sure what you're really asking. You're asking like when I get.
There's many things that you talk about that we cannot hear. You're either talking to each other and you're just mumbling, and that's what we get. We don't get the conversation, and we've put ourselves out to come here. We want to hear what you're saying.
I'm sorry if I didn't. I tried to project or modulate very well. I will just ask others to do the same. I don't know. Can you hear me now? Maybe I thought I was able to be heard.
It's
quite
not
well.
just when, it's when you're talking down to another member. You're away from the microphone and you cannot hear what you're saying.
You mean when I move and go to one of these others and talk to them?
Mr. Mayor,
No, when you're talking to Ms. Pollock.
with these
or anybody.
microphones, if you're not talking directly into it, what she's saying, she can't hear
Oh,
because you're looking at me when you're talking. That's
I'm
what she's
moving.
asking.
That's
I'll
why I
move it right-
suggested that maybe you could invest into a system where it's pinned onto you, like,
We'll just move. We can move these. I didn't know you couldn't hear. I thought I spoke and I'll get others to do it. Well, I just heard it get louder now. This is a new system. It was an expensive system and we hope we don't have to replace it, but we'll just find a more proper way to use it. And like I said, I can hear it. I just moved mine 8
Mhm.
inches forward and I can actually hear it. So
right.
that
And
I think we can
that's
easily achieve.
true. I agree with you there. But there are many of the people here that don't talk into it and they don't move it. It's like, I'm out here now. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I actually can, and my hearing isn't that good. but-
Okay,
But I agree. I certainly want you to hear what I have to say. Contrary what some people believe sometimes is
Mhm.
we do want people to know everything we do here.
right.
And we try to be as good as we can about it.
Well,
And this is an
and-
easy solution. I just corrected it in a few seconds.
Another thing was brought up to me when it's mainstreaming or people that are watching it that cannot be here. They said there's many things that they can understand what you're saying.
I think that'll address both of those things, not only to you, but to them
Right.
once again. So
Right.
We can all pull that a little closer. We'll achieve that
Okay.
easily.
I
And if we
appreciate it.
aren't, let us know.
I appreciate it. Thank
Yeah,
you.
okay?
Don't get wet.
Thank you, Ms. Price. And council, we have no one else signed up to speak before council. I will seek a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Reeves. Second by Mr. Davish. Council, are there any objections? We are adjourned.